702.
Weird and wonderful.
Savi the Monk, Savyasachi Das Prabhu, or Monk Swura, here on the Aubrey Masango Show. We're going to be talking about an individual and collective consciousness audit. He joins me now. He's here with me in studio. Swura the Monk, how's it going, my brother?
I'm well, my brother.
Yeah?
I'm well, happy to be back. Good evening to all the 702 listeners.
Happy Women's Day to you.
Thank you. I think in my previous life, I did that bit.
Yeah, you did?
Yeah.
Excellent. Talk to me about what do you mean by an individual and collective consciousness audit?
Thank you, Aubrey. We are living lives that seem to be governed by certain goals and ambitions. And so, as we look at where the rivers of our lives are flowing, we have to have a way to see, why am I going in that direction? Who has set up my life to point in that direction? And also, not only looking at one's personal life, but also looking at one's society, family, nation, the world. Where are we going, and are we all comfortable with where we are going? Are there things within us individuals that we can change, which when I change, something has changed in society? So what are the tools that are available for us to be able to look within, so that as we adjust within, we are also adjusting without? This is a conversation about individual responsibility. It is also a conversation which is holding us as a unit responsible for the life that is unfolding around us. We are definitely not all very happy about what's going on in our homes, in our schools, in our governments, in the world. So let's talk about what the ancients have to say about looking within and course correcting and moving towards what most people aspire for, which is more of a holistic life of happiness and peace and etc., etc.
I remember reading at some point one thought leader suggesting that everything that we see happening outside is actually a reflection of what's going on inside of us. That is true for the individual, and it is true for a collective. That the relative success, peace, and harmony that we see at a certain point in time is reflective of what is going on in the mind or in the inner world of the people or the individuals or collectives of that particular society. But it is true also for the chaos and the angst and the evil that we see, that it is also reflective of what's going on inside. Would you agree?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, we are creating our reality in a sense that every action has its reaction. And on a gross level, we can see that if two nations pick up war and start firing their weapons, then a lot of people end up casualties on either side. But then also our habits, our character, our consciousness, it translates into how we live and how we show up everywhere. And so, in one sense, we are dealing with the symptoms of an inner problem. We are dealing in society with a poor quality of consciousness. Dare I say, the human being is manifesting an animalistic consciousness, whereas is capable of something better.
I was speaking to Gogo Obrimachitli in a 3-part series of conversations about global events, domestic events. And one of the things that he said about the month of of August specifically, is that it's going to be a month that is going to be characterized by seismic changes. Things are going to be happening that are going to really make us have to stop and think about our consciousness as people, as a species, but also as the people of this country. And I imagine that is what you are calling for us to stop and say, wait a second, what's going on here? Where are we going? Where do we come from? And perhaps offer some sort of way by which we can look at ourselves in a way that may be transformative?
Yes. So it's a grave responsibility. If we are on this train that is speeding in a certain direction, we have to pause and check, are we really all on board with where it's going? So what is happening is that naturally, because we are living in the country, in the world, we are under certain conditions. One major thing is that we've been educated for a particular goal. And the greatest minds of our times, the intellectuals, have been hijacked for a very simplistic goal, if you think about it: convenience and comforts. Whatever intellect has gone into industry, into technology, into space travel, if you really grind it down, you see that it's just mankind trying to create more comforts, more conveniences, less a goal which is deeper, which is attending to the deepest needs of everyone: community, service, love. And the resources are plenty. As Gandhi had said, it's not the needs that are unfulfilled by nature, but it's the greed. So as everyone is scrambling to make sense of what's going on, as others are scrambling for more power and control, we find that a lot of us are feeling really insecure about where the whole thing is going. And my proposition is to first look within and try to discover what is the mission of my life at the level of
the individual. Where are we now? If you were to stop and fly out and have a panoramic view of humanity, and even us here in South Africa, where are we now in terms of the quality of our consciousness, and where is it taking us?
We are really at a dangerous time where, driven by fear and a lack and insecurity. So this triggers a consciousness driven by what is known as the mode of passion and ignorance. There, in those modes, those are lower. They're not as illuminating as the mode of goodness. In such consciousness, then the human being is very much animalistic, flight and fight. It's dog eat dog. It's struggle, as they say, survival of the fittest, although we say nobody survives. So when people are uncertain about their future and are afraid of losing whatever little they feel they possess, they are very easily triggered into a destructive course in trying to self-preserve. So if we would fly out to sea, we would say we're in the winter of the Earth's seasons. And within that winter, there's a need to really pull together, lest we sign up for a global slavery, which will come in the name of securing everyone's needs and being able to create security and safety for all. When the systems are collapsing, then we are open to accept whatever type of tyranny may come in the name of saving us. So it is a very dangerous time, and spiritual knowledge, genuine spiritual wisdom, needs to be brought into light, because we have seen political agendas, economic plans, and all of it doesn't seem to be picking us out of this despair, this uncertainty, this anger, this division. So it is only a spiritual light that can remove this darkness that engulfs us in this winter that we're in.
Winter, as uncomfortable as it is, at any moment, is also a promise of a spring.
Yes.
I know that I'm saying that too early in the conversation that you and I are having, but it is true that when we observe that we are in the winter of our consciousness as a species, as a people, as a moment in the epoch of time, we are also aware of the fact that this too shall pass.
Yes, and what is wonderful is that when the problem is dire and when the people are so disenfranchised and weak, then divine arrangement provides solutions that are very easy to take up. When we're discussing consciousness, first we want our listeners to understand where we are generally functioning. One level of consciousness is food consciousness. The children, everything goes to the mouth. That's how they experience the world. And after that is what is known as prana consciousness, where one is just trying to stay alive. So we can see that that is prominent. Everyone is trying to stay alive and therefore pushing and shoving. Higher than that is when one is seeking knowledge to understand what causes what are who's moving the pieces, and where do I fit in. So those are now the think tanks of society who are supposed to give us the map.
The thought leaders.
But those thought leaders, if they remain at that level of simply trying to fill in the dark with their intellect, material intellect, then they will only grasp and bring forward ideas that are still part of the lower consciousness.
That are still steeped in this survivalist mentality,
yes.
Right? I made an observation yesterday as I was speaking to a colleague of mine on the show, that when we are not grounded in the knowledge of who we are, beyond what we are, when we're not grounded in the knowledge of understanding ourselves beyond our credentials and our material possessions, when we are, and by the way, the opposite of it is true. If we only understand ourselves only in terms of our lack or of our ignorance, the result is pretty much the same. Whether it's because you understand yourself in terms of your many credentials, your many achievements, your material possessions. If we don't understand ourselves beyond that, at a deeper level than that, what we call education is indoctrination, not education. And I've had some people write to me to say, listen, you need to go deeper into that thought that you were expressing yesterday when you were speaking to Veronica, and I will. But I think that the conversation that we're having now is a very, very powerful lead into that, in saying that if our thought leaders are themselves using their brilliant intellects to continue the work of survival, then we are no closer to coming out of the depths of our animalistic behavior.
Yes. Because all that will do is that the horizon is never reached. There's also a lot of variety within the animalistic pursuits. And what happens is that everyone then has to chase these leaders of society. And what are we chasing exactly? One of our wonderful, powerful leaders, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, once commented in the 60s when they were celebrating going to the moon. His comment was, okay, so say they go to the moon. They spend billions and billions of dollars of taxpayers' money, and they cannot stay there. They'll have to come back. And what will they bring back? A few rocks. There's many rocks and earth on this planet. We're not paying so much money to go to some museum to see rocks and sand. So it's sold to everyone as we are going to the moon. And everyone egotistically identifies as we are going. But there's people that are plundering resources and stealing the imagination of people to see themselves as some sort of achiever, when it had nothing to do with changing your direct reality: food, clothing, shelter. So we have to see who is leading this mission of the species and what's the destination. Is it not just some rich billionaire's wet dream of conquering space, for example, sold to us as some sort of liberation? Is it some political minded person who seeks his own glory instead of providing simple, straightforward needs? For example, food. There's plenty land that God has provided. When you put a seed in that earth, it gives a result, and that seed can give some more. Can we not invest in feeding people, make sure that there's enough food? Isn't that a basic mission?
How is it that these charismatic leaders, whether they are billionaires with a intergalactic wet dream, or leaders that have caught the imagination of a significant portion of the population, how is it that they achieve this ability to almost mesmerize, to bewitch the minds of very intelligent people with their narratives? How is it possible that they are able to do so? Does it have anything to do with that lower vibrational consciousness that you were talking about? And maybe a more technical question is, what is the difference between consciousness and awareness?
So awareness is a symptom of consciousness. And consciousness is also a symptom of life. So anything that is living is aware. At the lowest level of consciousness is called covered consciousness. These are your plants and such. They are aware but quite covered. And as the consciousness develops, it's called shrunken consciousness. This you can find in the insects and the creepy crawlies. Higher than that is what is called budding consciousness. The human being is potentially able to blossom, which would be the higher level of consciousness. So how people are being mesmerized and being taken by these charismatic leaders is that they are basically catering to our basic drives. They are promising that which we desire, meaning in this world, generally it's the economics. Everyone wants money. Money can bring us enjoyment, sense enjoyment. So that's the animalistic platform where one's major energy is based on the body, the comforts and conveniences of the body or the senses. So by standing up tall and speaking loudly and saying, this is what I'll provide, every personality is thinking, I want this, and they are promising it. And they couldn't say it so loudly and boldly if it wasn't true.
There was a guy by the name of Goebbels who was a member of the leadership of the Nazi Party in the times of Hitler. A brilliant man in terms of his intellect. Very, very clever man. His intellect was in the service of evil. His brilliant intellect was in the service of evil.
That should sink in.
Sure, I need to say that again. His brilliant intellect was in the service of evil. I realize, even as I say that we can find ourselves in a very strange dichotomy of realities, where a brilliance can be used in the service of evil. A brilliance that is almost otherworldly. Goebbels said something to the effect that if you tell people something often enough, doesn't matter how much of a lie it is, if you repeat something often enough, the people will believe it. And it suggests what you are saying to be true, that we are in such a survivalist moment of our consciousness at the moment, that like a hungry person will eat out of a garbage can, that our consciousness is hungry for enlightenment, that we are candidates for the garbage cans of charismatic individuals. We're able to be fooled by fantasies of very charismatic individuals. How do we get to a place where we wake up from our slumber? How do we wake up from this state of being bewitched by our own desire for comfort and predictability and security, and versus the predatory charismatic maneuvers of certain powerful individuals?
It is it's all determined by what we hear. See, sound is a very primeval element. It is the most closest subtle element that can recalibrate consciousness, that can purify it or bind it. So we are day in and day out being bombarded with this type of messaging, this narrative that just follow us, just hear us. This is what we're going to do, and it's happening, and we need you to be on board.
Especially now, before the elections.
Everyone's
that's going to happen. And I mean, it's going to intensify. I would even surmise. Yeah.
Yes. So we need to hear from those whose interest is our welfare spiritually. And so it's a caliber of individuals who...
but the Bafundis are worse.
We'll analyze that class also.
Okay.
Because it's not just the dress that makes the man. We have to be able to analyze the content of their awareness. So anyone from any platform can speak loudly, hey, 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 hey. But what is that individual looking for? Are they working for their body and senses? Yes, imali, followers, and growing my worldly empire. It can be in the name of God, can be in the name of politics and liberation. So we have to hear from deep spiritual sciences. I would say we are rich already in wisdom on the continent. Whether you look to the east, you look to the north, there's always wisdom. The Bhagavad Gita gives a very nice understanding that when the individual soul looks away from the Supreme Soul, he becomes engulfed by fear. Because he now thinks there's a second energy that is stronger than the Supreme. And so when there's fear, all hell can break loose in terms of many illusions can be sold to us. So create space in society where people can hear about the reality of the spirit and what is the desire that is innate within all of us spiritually.
We've spoken about charismatic people in commerce who sell a particular idea of breaking the sound barrier of achievement in the commercial world. We've spoken about political charismatic individuals who prey on the fears of people socially and economically. But there is the class of those who wear long dresses, of those who have liturgies, of those who recite commandments, the priestly class. In all traditions, who have blunted the sharpness of the minds of the people through the story that they purport to be the story of faith. They have stolen the ability of individuals or of collectives to think independently on the basis of an idea of a God that is looking down upon you with judgmental eyes. What of them? And what is their contribution to the lower order consciousness that you were talking about?
Earlier on, we spoke about intellect and thought leaders, and the fact that genius has always been there in human society, that currently that intellect and genius is being directed, into industry, technology, politics, the modern agenda. AI, augmented reality, immersive experiences. In the past, however, the class of intelligentsia and the intellectuals, those were, according to their qualities, in the mode of goodness, peaceful, tolerant, cultivating knowledge, pure in their behavior. That intellect was being invested in becoming non-attached, non-envious, materially unbound. So those individuals were then, via mediums of transcendental spiritual awareness, they are like the head of society. Then they keep the spiritual vision alive for society. Once those intellectuals had been corrupted by the message of the lower, which is the merchants, the business, the economics types, the sensual, then even though they try to speak the message of transcendence, but they are gripped by their lower nature, and therefore what comes out is half-truths, which are impotent in liberating people from their lower animal natures. So purity is needed. And the standards of purity, people don't like to hear them. But I give, for example, one standard of purity is no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no meat eating, fish or eggs. These were ways to tap into a higher frequency of consciousness where the chains of materiality are cut.
Are they behind anyone?
Yeah, ish. Kulkuni. It's like while you're walking the steps, you know, like uqala kancane to let go of such things. But if you want the best facility in consciousness, then that will have to go. Yes. Anti-manje, this is a coping mechanism which has been accepted as a source of actual happiness. Without this, there's no social fluidity. And say, understand.
And no boerewors.
The energy of death in food, blood, and flesh is transmitted and transmuted into the consciousness of the human being. Therefore, anger, intolerance, envy.
Hey, I want to get one. By the way, give us a call on 118830702. My guest is Monk Spuda. They call him Savi the Monk. Savya Sachidas Prabhu. We're talking about an audit into human consciousness, individually and collectively. And clearly, if ours is not a connection with something bigger than that which we are chasing, that which we are chasing becomes bigger than everything else. And there's a warning in all of that that speaks of where we find ourselves right now. The topical issues at the moment are the Western Cape taxi strike, the Zamazamas, the kill the Boer, kill the farmer chant, the idea that there is a white genocide in South Africa, whether that's true or not. Those are the conversations at the moment, the corruption in government, the ineptitude in government, the focus on issues of next year's general elections that are going to start. In fact, it started in many ways. The silly season has already started. Yeah, it has started. If you look at what's going on in the Western Cape, you look at what's going on in other parts of the country with the all of those things are indicative of actions that are motivated by that lower level consciousness that you are talking about at the moment. How do we find the higher level consciousness for the people that are not looking for that highest form of anointing, where you got to leave the boerewors and the beer? Because I get a sense that those that leave the boerewors and the beer and the prawns
yes, those are like
the prawns too,
the scavengers of the ocean.
Oh, yeah.
But that is not where one starts.
Yeah.
Yes, like I mentioned, sound vibration. So currently there's a commercialization of things like meditation, and they're coming off as bing. It's just like your choice if you have time and if you need to try it out. But in proper civilization, it's understood that sound vibration is what can change consciousness. So such technologies is what should be broadcast everywhere. Mantras, it's even said in Egypt, how did they pick up those huge rocks and build the pyramids? Sound, sonic therapy. So sound in the sense of knowledge transmission, what is the higher order of reality?
Yeah.
And also sound in terms of therapeutic sound that can clear all that pollution that is there in our consciousness. I personally, I'm a man of mantra meditation. I chant Hare Krishna mantra.
In the beginning was the Word. So says another scripture. In the beginning was the Word. Could it be that where we begin is in what words we say? Could it be that it's not so much about the Buddha Force, although maybe that is part of what happens as you evolve, as you grow, that it's not about what you wear, but what you hear and what your mind entertains? Could that be part of the process that we need to follow? What conversations we're having on radio?
Yes.
Why? Why is it that we push the agenda of having people that will sit in front of us in a studio that will argue so that we can get certain ratings? What does that help? In what aid? In what is that in aid of? Could that be perhaps where we start?
Yes.
Because
I know. Yeah, no.
I joke, but go ahead.
You put it very succinctly there, Aubrey, that the lifestyle change comes with what conversation and internal dialogue is going on within us. So what we are hearing is what will come out in our activities. So the narrative that's being pushed is low vibration, because in low vibration, then we can be manipulated to stay consumers and chasing a dream. But when we get high vibrational knowledge, then we function in this way, that we sharpen our intellect with real knowledge and we are able to soften the heart. Low vibration is giving us lots of information, but the heart becomes hard. Therefore, we move away from our nature of service. We are meant to serve. And the more we serve, the happier and the clearer we are. But when we are in the exploitation, fear consciousness, then there's no service attitude.
Yeah.
It's a selfishness.
Yeah.
It's a grab. So everyone is trying to align themselves with some winning team in this fight. Whereas there's enough, there's abundance. It's just that we are unable to tap into it because our tools are very low class when we've been provided something high level which is self-sustaining, like this Earth planet, full of everything you can imagine to maintain life and for us to thrive. But we are unable to use it for all because we are a low vibration and we cannot appreciate the gift before us. So consciousness needs to be cleared by knowledge.
Let's talk to Monica in Mapetla. Mamuruti, the guy.
Hi, Aubrey. How are you? And
Very good, Mamuruti. What is on your mind?
It's a very interesting topic, ne? I don't even know if I'm going to make sense from, your guest is talking deeper things, But there was a time where I felt that a group, a collective, a crowd, it no longer matters these days. What matters is an individual who, at the end of the day, from the background of being a Christian, everybody is going to give an account to God. The grave is for you alone, and somewhere, somehow, you are going to give an account as an individual, not as a group. But the potential of a person that we are born with, it has been bewitched by this thing of we are a crowd, we are a group, we are black, we are white, therefore we are the same, we think the same. But in the true sense of it, there is a human being who has a soul, a spirit, flesh, and the body, that as a human being, he is accountable to his creator. In this case, as Mamuruti, to his God, the person who created him. So I don't know if I make sense.
You make absolute sense. Absolute sense, Mamuruti. We want to thank you very much for your call. Much appreciated. She makes absolute sense to me.
Clear.
Absolute sense to me. Let's talk about solutions. What do we do? What do we do tomorrow? What do we tonight? What do we do tonight? What do we do as we continue? What do we do to raise our quality of consciousness? Because what you seem to be saying is that it's not a lack of consciousness. The quality of consciousness is such that it is...
We can do better.
You can do better. Yeah.
Yes. I would, as Mamuruti has spoken, that let us not be fooled by group dynamics. For example, there's a rise in people who want to deny the existence of the Supreme Person. And without looking to the Supreme Person, who's the source of everything and everyone, then where do we find answers of our origin, answers about where we are, and answers as to how to deal with this creation we find ourselves in? So let us revisit all the known books of wisdom. Let us visit the elders who speak of the divine human mission, and let us make that search for the Supreme a priority. Let us not just hear from...
Are you calling for us to all be religious now?
I'm calling for everyone to become seekers of truth. Let us look into the spiritual wisdoms of the world.
In many ways, that would really break the back of religion. You know, if people became true seekers of truth, religion would be in trouble.
Yes, the questions have to be also asked to all those who represent said religions, because in some areas, once you have questions, that's a problem. Therefore, I'm reading for you and I'm interpreting, and you don't read and you don't ask questions. So we need to investigate this subject. It is the actual mission of a human being.
I've always wondered why in church you never have like somebody who stands. I mean, some lunatic sometimes who come to church, right? Mm-hmm. We never have somebody who stands up and says, point of exigence. while the preacher or the pastor is preaching, he'll go, I want to ask a question. We never have that. Maybe we need more of that.
Yes, we need to. Human life means inquiry, and there should be no limit to the questions we can ask, and especially asking in light of these deep topics, because we have to apply or follow such higher tenets, and that means our intellect has to be fully convinced. It shouldn't be a matter of I'm just part of a group. I'm just there because bazongwaba and they'll do my wedding, and
it's our culture.
It's our culture. We've been pirates and chiefs, and no. We should get into what is the import of this, and what will it do for me beyond this body.
Spuda, I want to thank you once again for a deep conversation here on The Weird and the Wonderful. I think we've started. We can't stop though. Yeah?
Yes.
I'm looking for greater conversations about these matters as we go forward. How do people get in touch with you?
You can find me on social media, on Instagram, on YouTube, as Savia the Monk, SAVYA the Monk, Savia the Monk, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok.